Most of us might think that playing like Faker is a huge challenge, but in this video you'll discover that with some insights and practice, those dreamy mechanics might only be a few steps away. Hey, what is up guys, this is Unspecialized, and here on Perspective I'll help you rapidly improve your gameplay through the change of mindsets on different aspects of the game. Today's video is gonna be an intro to playing like Faker. First I'll be going over the concepts, guide you through the knowledge that you need to know, and then jump into some Faker clips to show you how exactly he applies it to his gameplay. This is Faker for all.
君はヒーローになれる。
Ever since Faker's debut, he's been able to consistently stay relevant throughout all of meta shifts and easily being one of the most admired player in League of Legends. While most of Faker's champion mechanics are achievable, there is one thing that separates him from the rest. It is a core mechanic that he had mastered and revolved his playstyle around, almost like a hidden passive that he had awakened. We'll call that the invisible health bar. Notice that I said it is a core mechanic, but what does that have to do with HP? Isn't that a stat? Well yes, and if you take a little look back at this ancient meme, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, we dug this relic out straight from the ancient runes of Season 3.
Nah, fuck that shit, man. He's too tanky.
Alright, all jokes aside, he is not wrong. If abilities goes on cooldown and his HP is not dropping, that motherfucker is tanky. Well, in a way, it's more like an abstract tankiness that you get for being good. And this core mechanic known as movement is quite often overlooked. Now let's take a little moment to think about this. How does he always do it? Always winning his duels, outtrade his opponents? Well, if you watch his replays, you realize that the key lies in evading important abilities, almost as if he had an unseen HP lead over his opponents. Both sides have the same damage potential, but only one comes out on top. It is the essence of outplay. You know how in all the sports trainings or martial art classes, the coaches always emphasize the importance of the form? It makes such a huge difference that people can actually tell your skill level simply by looking at it. The exact same applies in League. Top tier players, they are able to tell how well you play just by the way you move. And what better ways are there other than to learn it from the unkillable Demon King himself? Now most players have the basics down, but not many have invested enough attention to it. If you truly want to dodge like Faker, you need to factor in a lot more variables into the equation than you have been. Firstly, I need to clarify a fact here. As inhuman as you might think Faker is, I can guarantee you that raw reaction speed only plays a minor part of the dodging. The real skill here is the mind game behind it. It is something that most players have. Only a few utilize, and even fewer uses it to its max potential, and that is of course game knowledge. Now there are a ton of videos out there telling you that prediction is by far the best way to dodge things, and unfortunately they never show you how. Hence this video. So here it is. There are 3 pieces of game knowledge that you must have and a habit that you must develop if you want to achieve Faker's level of sidestepping. First of all is knowing the range. You need to know the range of all the abilities on the other team. Unfortunately there are no shortcuts to this one, but it is also not that hard to get a rough estimate of how far abilities can reach. I believe that most players have already got this down, but please just make sure you keep this in mind during the game. Secondly, it will be the cast time. This includes the channeling time and the projectile speed. Knowing the time it takes for the spells to reach you will be extremely handy when you're trying to sidestep. Again, there is no shortcuts to this one, but it shouldn't be that hard once you see the abilities goes off a few times. Moving on. Last but not least is knowing the cooldowns. Now this is by far the most crucial and difficult piece to learn and master, and lucky for you there's a trick to it. You don't need to use time to track cooldowns. Yes, I know, what the fuck, you don't need time to calculate time? Let's think back to that physics class that you slept through back in high school, wondering why the fuck do I need to know all this shit? Well, here's why. It is extremely hard for people to keep track of time when it gets longer than 4 seconds during the game. It has no visuals. However, just like all your physics equations, there are multiple factors that can lead you into knowing the time. By converting some of the aspects of the game into time markers, you can actually track the enemy's cooldown without knowing the exact time itself. Things like auto attacks, walking distances, even flashing your level 7 mastery icon. Be creative. So with all that knowledge that we just talked about earlier, let's bring that in and see how Faker actually applies them in the real game.
Power levels 8,000. How? Wait, it's over 9.
So firstly, we're gonna look at Faker's TF. Many of you have probably seen this already, but for those who haven't, here it is. As you can see, throughout the entire duration, he's been sidestepping, because everything's checked off. He knows that he's in range of the abilities and that they are off cooldown. This is why I emphasize so much on the fact that you don't actually need to know their exact cooldown, because you just need to know when it's up. Players don't usually throw the skill shots right off the bat. They usually wait until you run into a vulnerable zone to increase their chances of connecting it. But unfortunately for them, Faker knows exactly what they're thinking, purposely walks towards that sweet spot, and right before he hits it, he turns away. And as a result, all 3 challenger level players just gets juked the fuck out. And here's something interesting that many people might not have realized during the first time of watching this replay. When you actually keep track of their skill shots, you can see that all of them are aimed at the exact same spot. For our second dodge play, we're gonna use the time when someone got clapped. So let's analyze the situation here. What is the main spell that he intends to dodge? The Casio ult. When will be the most effective time to use it? Well, when you get into the turret range and trigger the turret aggro. So again, Faker baits it by walking into the edge of the turret range, pretends to be clueless and throws W. The clap 140 was the perfect chance and went for it. Proceed to ult straight into a tuck to the back. The clapper walks away like nothing happened. And our final one would be a habit that you should develop to achieve the highest level of sidestepping, and that is to respect the unknown. By creating a habit of backstepping when you walk towards places that you might potentially get hit by spells from those dirty bush campers, not only does it increase your alertness to your surroundings, as well as overall awareness, it will also juke out many unseen skill shots. So these 3 key knowledges that I mentioned will be used as sidestep triggers to judge whether or not you need to sidestep at all. How much time do you have to dodge, or how early do you need to start the sidestepping, and when do you have to juke the next spell in a prolonged chase. So to put it simply, instead of mindlessly playing the game, throwing countless hours into it, hoping that your game experience will eventually take over and do all the predictions for you, pay a little more attention to what's right in front of you, and you might realize that the answers are often closer than you might think. Feel free to drop a like and subscribe for more future contents. This is Perspective. Let's make the game more interesting.